Hello, welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark, CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur. We are in Green Bay today. Super excited. I am the author of Leading Winning Teams, and most people know me because I spent over 13 years in Major League Baseball, coaching in 3 World Series. Today, special guest today at Draft Day here in Green Bay with Stephen Davis Jr., and he joins my co-host today, Rob Finkelstein from Alumni Direct and Athletes to Entrepreneur podcast. Hey, Rob, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing great. How you doing?
Can't be living better right now. If I could open my eyes with maybe toothpicks, that would be something. I'm a little fatigued, but dinner last night in Chicago, draft day today. But we're here live with Stephen Davis Jr. Stephen, Minnesota grad. Listen, man, the University of Minnesota puts out big-time athletes.
No doubt.
And you're just another one.
Yeah, no doubt.
No doubt. So, Stephen, you are in a business now where you are literally helping athletes transition from this massive stress in the whole thick of it to thing just stops.
Yeah.
Right? In a moment. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, what do? I got maybe my education, maybe I don't. What do I need to finish up? I got family obligations. I've got all these things, and everyone's looking like, what next?
Man, tell me about it. It's the journey that everybody goes through. You put your identity wrapped into the sport, and then once the sport is over, you're left picking up the pieces for the first time with autonomy and really don't know what to do with it. So that's why I decided to step in and support as my own story, but also just seeing other athletes struggle and trying to be supportive to help them get through the other side and really build on who they want to become. So
love it. And then, by the way, we're in the thick of this, right? Because this is draft day. Lives are changing today. So we are in day 2 of the draft. Last night, big exciting, all the first rounders, all the big hoopla. Day 2, still big hoopla. Round 2 and 3, big deal. It just continues through the weekend. Amazing the fan support that's come up to Green Bay. We are at the E-Hub here. Beautiful E-Hub here, where all the entrepreneurs startup helped over 1,000 entrepreneurs get started in this area. We've had Mark Burwell on from the E-Hub here this morning. Big deal. We got Sport Face representing. We got a little live audience today. So we got all sorts of stuff going on here on draft day. Stephen, next question for you, man. You played in it, you did it. Tell us a little bit about your story, about the transition where it's now what?
Yeah. I mean, for me, so I'm originally from St. Louis, and coming out of St. Louis, I was the #1 high school recruit, getting recruited by a lot of different teams. And I chose to go to Minnesota from a standpoint of the opportunity and also thinking long-term is a place that I can live.
And let's be honest. A guy I coached, Dave Winfield, went there.
Yeah.
So that plays a role.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you got super athletes who get multiple athletic chances in the pros, Minnesota is a playground and a breeding ground for pros. So that's a recruiting tool for you, right? You're thinking, do I really want to go to the cold, but I'm going to get a chance at the next level?
Yeah, and I mean, at the time, I looked at Minnesota and I was they're playing inside, so I don't have to deal with the elements as much. But at the same time, it's I have the opportunity to come into a school who's been in the middle of the pack of the Big Ten, and maybe I can help change that and also give myself an opportunity to make it to the pros. It was a no-brainer in that regard. But I had a really prosperous career, man. I played defensive end my first 2 years. I became a freshman All-American, second team All-Big Ten. And then we had a coaching staff change, and I moved to outside linebacker with the hopes of that, being a undersized defensive lineman, that this will help me in my projections to go into the NFL. And never played linebacker before in my life. I was focused on one thing as a defensive end, and then all of a sudden having to do what everybody else is doing on the field and really kind of expand my knowledge of where everybody's supposed to be at. And it took me a while to adjust to that. And then the next year we moved to a 3-4 defense, and that was an outside rush. So I had a lot of different transitions while within the sport, but put all my eggs in that, still thinking definitely felt like I was one of the top 300 players that can get picked. And my family threw a draft party. So I know what the players are going through right now. But unfortunately for me, I didn't get my name called. So that was what the eye-opening opportunity, just well, I put everything into this, and now all of a sudden it's done. And I'm a little embarrassed. I'm a little ashamed. I don't know what to do next. And that's what's really kind of jump-started what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I saw a couple posts about this morning
Yeah.
about like people like, hey, I had the draft party, my family's all there. Like, my name's gonna get called, and it's like, I'm just waiting by the phone. Like that thing is not gonna ring, and it's crazy.
Man.
That's a humbling moment.
It's
right?
nerve-wracking too. It's like you sit there and everybody's around you, everybody's partying, eating, and celebrating.
Yeah.
You're nervous. Like you're looking at your phone the whole time. And if anybody texts or call you that's not your agent or a team, you're like, why are you
enemy number one, right?
yeah. So it definitely, like, you feel like a shell of yourself. You're outside of your body in that moment until you are anticipating hearing your name called, anticipating a team giving you a call and letting you know that you're going to be part of that team. And until that point, it's like nothing matters.
Yeah. Rob, let's jump into Steven a little bit of the NIL space, right? Rob and I host a show called NIL for You that it's become prominent in the college athlete. I know if you're like me, you look back at our college days going, I could have made millions. I don't know if I would have made millions, I'll be honest. But like,
I would.
You would have? Yeah. I mean, listen, at a Big Ten school, there's real money. Toledo, not so much. So, and I also wasn't playing football, right? So like, there's prominence. So I'll be realistic. I wasn't going to make millions. You missed out on millions.
Hey, there would have been big money at Delaware, though, Trent. I'm telling you,
Yeah, Delaware track especially.
Yeah.
I mean, I see the dollars flooding now in there.
If you got big donors, big market, hey, you never know.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you think about these now, like now we're starting at a younger age of learning our name, image, likeness has value, and like now, we're this commodity. Like before, and by the way, I'm one of these few people that really argue about before, because if you were a full-time athlete like Steven was, you're on full ride. I mean, everything at university was paid for. I don't know about you, but I didn't have money for everything at university, right? So I felt like this is a gift. I'm creating a value. We have a value exchange. I play for the university. I was a two-sport guy at a Division I school. So I had the value exchange. I give my time, effort, everything. They say student athletes. It's really athlete students. Athletes comes first.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
So then it's, okay, I got a degree. I got something to walk away with. So I felt like the value exchange was decent. Nowadays, when you realize, Minnesota puts about 80,000 in on a home game, you realize it's a lot of money flowing.
Mm-hmm.
So having a little piece of that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, most definitely. And it's like two sides of the coin. Like you get a scholarship, and not to say that you're not appreciating that scholarship.
Yep.
But to be honest with you, as you said, you're an athlete student. So when you go into the institution, everything is worked around your schedule as an athlete. And for me personally, I went into school going to get a degree in graphic design.
Yeah.
I had to change my major after my freshman year because my core classes were going to be during the time of all of my practices.
Yep.
So student is out the window.
Yeah.
Now I'm just adjusting to get a degree in something that I don't know if I'm necessarily going to be doing in my life, but just something to get me by so that I can be eligible for my football scholarship. So a lot of players are in that boat getting a communications degree. And when you get done, you're like, I don't know what to do with this. And I don't know what value I'm actually putting towards this because I partly paid attention to this. I just did it to get by, right?
It's a real source of frustration for athletes. And a lot of people go like, oh, the athletes, their major's underwater basket weaving. Like, listen, man, like, love to be a CPA, love to be an accountant. Then all of a sudden we find out like all the accounting classes are during practices and game schedules. And when you miss, 40% of your accounting work, you found out you're not a very good accounting student. So it's like it's a catch-22, right? That we don't know when we're going in.
Right.
One of the things in NIL I think we're trying to do now is we're trying to get kids educated. The 8 million high school students, and about 2.5% of them are going to go on to become college athletes, and trying to get them educated for what's about to happen. Because I don't know about you, but when I hit campus, I was like, your time is no longer your own, right? And you are this piece of this cog that runs on, a rigid schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't be a part of it and get on board and move on that train's length, speed, and time, effort, get off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now there's that one thing. what would you tell a young athlete who's like, hey, I'm number 3 in my state. I'm the best defensive back. I'll probably be in the draft in 4 years, maybe 3.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, and then everyone's got big expectations. Love it. Like, never want to snort on anybody's dreams, right? But like, what are you telling them to get ready for what's about to happen?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with them. I'm like, everybody has that dream, but you're going into a system, and the system is built to use you. And if you're not at the same time thinking about how you can take advantage of the resources around you to better prepare yourself for life, you're gonna regret all the times that you had at that institution. A lot of times I run into athletes, and I think we have that one track mindset because we're focused on that one thing. And like, we come in here for, it's an ends to a mean. It's going to get me to the next step.
Yep.
However, it's hard for us to get outside of our mind to think about like, well, long term, how do I want to take advantage of what I have now to help set me up for the future success? And I tell people all the time, like, it's not a bad thing to go 110% on your dream of making it to the professional level from an athlete standpoint. And at the same time, tap into all the stuff that's around you on the institution's campus to better yourself, learn about things that you want to explore, make connections. Especially now with NIL, I feel like you have opportunity to, brand yourself and build a brand with other, entities and other organizations, but using that as a way of like, okay, how can I leverage these relationships? Because the sadder part about it is it goes by fast. And then when it's done, all those resources that you had, they're gone. Like,
turn off.
They turned it off. Like, they say, hey, good luck to you. And it's time for you to figure it out. Yeah. And most of us that are in that space, like, we don't think about it like that. Cause like, I'm one of that 2% and I'm going to make it. So regardless, like, this is just an incident. I'm using you all to get to where my goals and dreams are. But for a lot of us, that doesn't come to reality. And then we look back and we're trying to ask and knock on the door, and those doors are closed.
Yep. So 2 things, Rob, why don't you weigh in on this as we talk about Alumni Direct? We talk about, like, resources beyond, because Steven's exactly right. You leave the university, turn off, like, there's a couple of resources still there, like, oh, hey, we'll help you write a resume. Like, great. But like, a lot of the resources just turned off, and your network may have just turned off. Alumni Direct keeps that network going. And then the other thing I really see is, like, for a guy like Steven or an athlete who's in a category of, hey, I'm studying this communication, but I really want to be in graphic, taking advantage of his college fame, his notoriety, and starting to connect with the alumni who own graphic design, a chance to get some internship or NIL time now, where I can start learning about that. Like, hey, this is where I really want to be after, so I'm going to get involved now. Is that some, Rob, where you've seen some real intentional work from athletes?
Yeah, it's building a team. I mean, you get on this team your whole life, and starting to grow it up, and then through college, and now you've got this new team, and I think alumni are there to support you, and it's developing that plan and utilizing different resources. Like you said, it could be resources in financial literacy, it could be resources in education, it could be sales, it could be networking, connecting, branding. There's so many different things that I think people need to tap into. And alumni want to help. And, as we talked and had Steve on one of my other podcasts, and just talking about some of the great work he's doing at University of Minnesota in the alumni area, is just, being intentional, bringing alumni back and having them re-engage, especially the athletes, and having them work with athletes across all sports. It doesn't have to just be, the football players working with the football players. It could be football with basketball and soccer and all that. But I think it's really important to tap into that and create that new community.
Nice. Rob, we are getting toddler time in the background, just so you know. Like, I don't know what you got going on there over in Alumni. I know you got a big program with your wife's program there. So, yeah, like, that's a great reminder. If you haven't yet, go check out Athletes to Entrepreneurs. Steven Davis Jr. is already on an episode with Rob there. It's a super episode you're going to want to download to get that full experience with Steven and talk about that. Let's talk about now you got the draft.
Yeah.
Right. You got all these people. We're here. We're all excited. Teams are all excited. Man, it's amazing how sometimes that excitement, how fast that goes away. Right. It's like, yeah, it becomes real. Now it's your job. This is what you do. And the moment you don't add value, not a 4-year window to figure it out. Mm-hmm. The moment you don't add value, that's turned off. And you are back on your couch at home. I love the story of the quarterback from the Rams, the movie. I can't think of the movie right now.
Kurt Warner?
Yeah, Kurt Warner's story
Yeah.
of like, I'm stocking shelves, man. I'm playing in an arena football league trying to get a chance.
Yeah,
Like I think I can still do this, but like his whole story is just amazing. But probably an accurate look of a lot of players of all of a sudden it turns off and like, I need to do something.
Yeah. It's kind of like a starving actor, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're out there just
starving artist, man.
Yeah.
Like this is it. Hey, would
Trying
you
to
buy my
hustle.
painting? I might have to go
Right.
on Etsy.
Right.
Start selling pictures.
selling your value. Like, hey,
yeah.
do you want me to be a part of your
Yeah.
team?
Yeah. I can run down to the field and show you drills on Etsy.
Exactly.
You buy it. Like, yeah.
No, it's funny because it's like the reality of the situation is that people are going to be lucky if they get to play into their 30s.
Yeah.
The majority of the players who go pro maybe are there for 3 years at max.
Yeah.
So you're done and you're in your 20s. If you get the opportunity, you could be an injury away from your career being over.
Anytime.
Anything. It's out of your control, right? So most times when that happens for athletes, it's like, all right, now my dream was there. I was this close and it got taken away from me.
Yeah.
And just imagine what that does to you mentally and emotionally, because you have all this support and you feel like you're a failure around your peers and your family. And you really don't know what to do in that moment because like you're grieving.
Yeah.
And I would say a lot of athletes will go through that grieving process for a few years, just trying to figure out like who they are. And most of the time we jump into a career right after, but still not fully healed with ourselves. So we're in that career and we're just trying to figure out, like, is this something that's going to make me feel like I used to feel when I was on the team?
Yeah.
And oftentimes it doesn't.
No.
So then it's like, well, I feel like I'm lost out here. I'm just doing this for the sake of doing this. This environment is different. Like if you're an athlete and you're wired in that environment with teamwork and competitiveness and resiliency, and you go out to the real world and you're working with people who are not athletes, you can notice the difference in the environment and you can see how people show up differently than how you want to show up. And sometimes that's a turnoff. So it's funny for me, I realized that as a pivotal point, which is why the work that I do is really on that foundational step of let's reorganize who you are and let's build towards who you want to become, so that you're not making decisions and moving in different directions without having intentionality behind it.
Yeah.
Without not learning about things that you want to learn so that you can use that to move forward in your life versus just taking something for the sake of taking it, but not really understanding what are you getting out of it.
Yeah, one of the things that really strikes me about that is positioning like yourself. One of the things that I had to learn, and I had to learn hindsight, right, was falling in love with my identity in pro sports or wherever I was at. You start believing your headlines, right? It's called believing, this is who I am. Like, I'm also the home run game-winning hit, like blah, blah, blah. I'm also the GOAT the next night striking out in the bottom of the ninth, right? So it's like one day you're on top of the world, the next day you're like everybody's hater, right? Like, so it's awful. And so you start, if you become the identity of what people are going to write about you in your paper, it's a recipe for disaster. I had to learn at hindsight. It sounds like you got it hindsight, right? Yeah. And so it's a tough lesson. So as we're bringing tools in, as Stephen Davis Jr. brings tools into athletes, you want to get this in advance and build that foundation of who I am, be very solid with that position for whatever happens. If I stay, I'm still the same person. I'm still a husband. I'm still a dad. I'm still whatever. If I go, I've got opportunities. I know how to do other work. I've got skill sets. I think Alumni Direct provides that. Rob, what have you seen in your world when you talk about athletes who end abruptly and are challenged by gapping that into the next level?
Yeah, I think a lot of them they still identify themselves as a sport. And the athlete, they don't see the path ahead, and it becomes very difficult for them. They don't know what to do. I'm Steven, the football player, Trent, the baseball player, Rob, the runner. What's next in my life? And I think that's where they need to know that there's people out there that want to help. And I know that talking to Steven, he does a lot with Strive Higher for Sports, and then also with Athlete Soul, which he could talk a little about here real quick and talk about Miriam Glez and all the great work that her team is doing there, because people need help. And I think when you look at, athletes like you guys, us, that have gone through it and can, bring our life experiences to help other athletes out. Because I think that's what a lot of them feel like they might be alone on an island, but they're not. I mean, there's a lot of, probably most of the athletes have gone through some type of a transitional issue. And so now if they can reach out and hear those other experiences and just know that there is life after sports and things that they can definitely tap into and utilize resources like Alumni Direct in some of these different areas. So maybe, Stephen, why don't you talk a little bit about Athlete Soul and kind of what they're doing and what you're doing to help out athletes as they come out of sports?
Hold on, before he does that, I think you should wear Rob the Runner on your podcast shows, by the way. Like
Rob the Runner. It's great.
Yeah, I do think you should have that T-shirt. I would buy that T-shirt, by the way. And then also, I think what you touched on as we talk about Athlete Soul, I can remember talking to athletes who, it turns off, and where are you going to get 50,000 people cheering for you? Like, it's not like you can walk your dog down to the park and go, hey, listen, I'm going to be down there. Everyone should come in and cheer for me while I walk the dog, right? Like that's not happening anymore. To recreate the environment of pro sports and what actually happened is pretty difficult, right? And so that high, that energy, if you're basing everything internally on what's happening externally, big gap. Yeah. Fair? Yeah. So talk about Athlete Soul and how we're bridging that.
I mean, and we're groomed in that too. So that's the difficult part.
Yeah.
With
that, it's a little addictive, right?
It is.
Because you start going like, ooh, I need that adrenaline hit. I like that. Like, this is good. Like, except when I strike out and everybody boos. That's fine. Whatever.
But still,
that never happened.
The translation of it is the support network that you have. Like, who do you have around you that can be honest with you, can cheer for you, that you can tap into? I talk about that as well. Like, there are certain people that you have in your life when you go pro, and you got to weed them out because they may not be good for you. But then the others, it's like, who do I lean into that can be with me no matter what happens in my life? If I'm doing well in my sport, if I'm doing bad in my sport, if I'm doing horrible in life, whatever that may be, I just need folks to tap into to help me. So that's an important aspect. With Athlete Soul, it's a nonprofit that I've been working with over the last few years. They are, founded by former athletes, focused on the identity of athletes after the game, and providing a lot of resources for free for athletes to be able to access and really utilize to help them in that transitional period. They have a group coaching program that I'm a part of where we bring about 10 to 12 athletes together, go through a 12-week transition coaching program, giving them that foundational piece and giving them a little bit something to set them on the pathway. And then they work with individuals like me to also do one-on-one coaching and providing scholarships for the athletes to be able to use that. So the mission is really focused on, providing that space. And usually when we're in that period of grieving and like trying to figure out what's next, like you don't really know who to talk to or who to turn to. Right. And oftentimes who
understands what I'm going through.
Right. And oftentimes you're like, I don't have money and I don't know who to pay, but I don't want to pay. So trying to get past that barrier sometimes with athletes is difficult, but by providing an accessible way to say, hey, I know where you're at and I've been there before. Here's a way for me to help you if you're willing.
Yeah.
And that's what Athlete Soul helps me to do.
Good. So Soul, S-O-U-L, right? We're really talking internal now. So when you look at now, you got kids coming through the draft, everything's new and exciting. What are you telling a player right now? What are the 3 questions right now that no one's thinking about? Because we're thinking about like, how much money am I going to make? What new car I'm going to drive by? All this stuff. When we're asking ourselves the wrong questions, what are the 3 right questions I should be asking myself if I get drafted today in the 3rd round?
First, I think, is the support network. Who do I have around me that will be with me and there for me no matter what happens in my life that I can tap into?
I love this, right? We talk about this on the show all the time. You are going to become the average of the 5 people you spend time with and all your time. So you better think hard on who these 5 people are really going to be. And man, it's tough. Right? Because sometimes that's like a family member. You're not eliminating them. Yeah. You're just taking a break.
To the side.
You're taking a break. Like, hey, listen, I'm going to see you in 2029. It's cool. Yeah. It's going to be a great Thanksgiving. But you have to separate a little bit sometimes on people that aren't great influence for you. And it's not a knock on that. It's just like, hey, I'm triggered in a bad way when I'm with this person. And it's and it may not be their fault. It may be my fault, but it doesn't matter. I've got to ask that hard decision on the 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 1. Question number 2.
The second question I would ask is really thinking long term. It's like, who's the person that you want to become? Like, what's the legacy that you want to leave? Not just within sports. Like, obviously, you're about to come up in status and money, and there's going to be a lot of people around you, and you can follow that train and lead yourself down this ego of this is who I am. But just thinking about, like, all right, you plan your sport, but long term, how do you want to be remembered within your sport, and also how do you want to be remembered out of your sport?
I love this, Rob, because, I remember the Olympic deal, right? I was in the steroid era in baseball, right? Like McGuire's hitting massive bombs, Canseco. Yeah, you know the whole group, right? Yeah, whatever. All right. Like, I'm not going to point any fingers. But anyway, there was a lot going on at the time. So I remember reading an article about the Olympics, and it would say, hey, if you could take an illegal substance and guarantee you gold, would you do it? The number was staggering. It was like 74%. Yeah, I do that. Like, listen, you're asking 17 and 19-year-old kids. I'm like, where is the study where you're 40 years old, you're going to leave your wife and children, 2 kids at home, they'll be on their own, someone else is going to raise your children. Was it worth it? Because there's no discussion on that rear view mirror of what life looks like at 40, looking back, because the wisdom of Rob and Trent and Stephen Davis Jr. of, hey, I've been to this thing. What you think it might be isn't exactly what it's going to be. Right. It's always not. So like, but you're asking 19-year-olds. So how does a kid get to be, it's tough to get into your 40-year-old body. Because I remember, like, as a dad, right? I got older kids. Like, I remember, like, my kids one day going, man, like, I don't want to be around all the older people and all this stuff. And I was like, who are they talking about? I'm like, oh crap, that's me. I'm like the old dad now. Like, I'm like the ones we used to talk about, like, oh my gosh, are your parents gonna be at the beach with us? Because they're like old, they're like 34. And I was like, hey, I'm 40. I'm the old guy now, right? Yeah. So I was like, oh man. So like, it's tough because we don't even know what that lens looks like. Do we get a mentor? Do we get a trusted advisor to walk us through and ask those hard questions?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. I mean, part of that support network. It's always good too to like hear from other athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called Dave Winfield.
Yeah.
He's got some great insight, right? Like, this guy's like, he's been through a lot. He's
played a lot of different sports.
Yeah. So, and had to live in New York, which is like everything you do is under the big scope, right? Yeah. Where it's like, what did you do today? Nothing to do. Dave Winfield was rude to a guy on a sidewalk, and like I was walking to the ball field, like the guy ran into me with his cart, It's crazy, and like the things you have to deal with, right? And so that's a real tough question for someone to look back as a 40-year-old, like, hey, how should I do that? All right, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Third question.
My third question would be focus on like the controllables, right? I would ask them, what are the things that they think they have control of that they can inhabit every day, on a daily basis, and how do they want to continue to grow on those habits? Because it's going to help them on the field, it's going to help them off the field, but hopefully by utilizing that question, it helps to translate like how they have been successful and how they would view themselves as successful each day. Because that's part of what I help others do, is like this strive higher mentality is a daily growth process. And what are the habits that you're doing and showing up with each day to help you get better?
Yeah. Rob, weigh in on this, because he's hitting a nerve with me on this one, man. Like, I'm like the things you don't get to control, you don't get to control. Yeah. Right? I'm a baseball guy, right? Umpires, strike zone's changing like every other pitch, right? Like, I don't get to, I can go into victim mode in a whole bunch of hurry and come back and go, Manager Steven, you saw it. It was a crappy call. That was below my knees. It wasn't a strike 3. All the crap, and play the victim role, right? Like, I'm getting screwed, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's a real hard challenge, but man, I'm taken right back to Henry Ford, right? Obstacles are those things we see when we take our eyes off our goals, because it's really easy to get into that crowd that we don't get to control. But like, hey, what can you take action? What can you do about moving you forward, regardless of what's happening out of your control? Rob, what have you seen in this environment from your world?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. There's things you just can't control. But I think you can also step back and look at them and see, what you can do to make a difference and help it out. I mean, so I was thinking as you're saying, they made a bad call. Next time up, hit a home run.
Yeah, right.
What he's calling, make the adjustments. So I think it's all about adjustments is key. Make those adjustments. So when people are, you're done with your sport and you're struggling, all that, make that adjustment. Get that new team, get that new support level, and just to be positive and take all those life lessons that you learned along the way, which are many in sports, and put them into your new life and what you're doing.
One of the challenges I always saw, like I couldn't imagine someone striking out in their first at bat and walking back to the dugout going, "That's it. I'm taking my ball and going home. I'm not even gonna like, no, you have 3 more at bats. Like, we're paying you $10 million. You got to go do this, right?" Like, and it's like, but we have kids that are doing this, right? We're almost we're
microwave society right now.
Yeah, we don't have any perseverance. We don't have any resilience. We're kind of losing that edge of sticking with stuff. And like, hey man, this is the learning lesson, right? Like, it's not going to go your way. What do your mentality and your reaction to that is equally as important as things that don't work out, right? Like, and so and everyone's watching about how they do that. Can you imagine a guy who today goes, "Well, I wasn't drafted in the first 2 rounds. Heck with it. I'm not playing football anymore." Like, wait, what? Like, you've been doing this your whole life and you're not going to play? Because I can't imagine when Tom Brady goes, "I should have been drafted in the first 2 rounds, so I'm not even going to accept my 6th round and go play." All that he did was catch fire going, "I'm going to show them," right? They all messed up, and I'm going to make sure they all know it, including, his famous go to Kraft and go, "I'm the best decision you ever made," right? Like, oh, sure, Tom. I'm sure Kraft probably remembered that. Like, I remember hearing that one through out the other, like, this kid's probably going to be gone in 90 days, right? Like whatever. Like, he's our 4th-string quarterback at this point. So,
well, that was like Mike Piazza too. Mike Piazza getting drafted in like the 62nd or 63rd round, which you don't have anywhere near that now. Hey, I just, while we're talking about this, the thought came across. I want to ask you, Stephen. So, you get all these guys being in the draft, and you hear about these teams, like, I think they get like 30, they can interview like, say, 30 players, that are on top of the list. What goes on with all the other players? If you look at beyond like the top guys in the first round or even the second round, I mean, are they being interviewed by the teams and looked at and all? How does all that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's sporadic. If the team has a strong interest in you, your agent will help set up those conversations throughout that process. But mostly it is you putting the film out there, your numbers out there, and those conversations are happening behind closed doors. With teams, like for me, for instance, I was hearing from my agent like 3 or 4 teams are interested in me. Because we had some conversations and we sent my information over to them. And, I did get a random call one day from one team just asking some information. So it's kind of sporadic in that regard. It may not be like as in person as like the top 3 round picks, but everybody gets an opportunity, I believe, to put themselves out there. But then it's, by happenstance in regards to like, all right, past the 3rd round, it's like, I don't know. We're going to see what happens. And hopefully I get my name called by one of these teams, or it may be a team that you weren't even thinking about that, saw your film and really wants to bring you in. So it's unique for each person, I would say.
And then when they have the combines, is that the whole pool of players as well, or is that just the top players?
No, those are like selected players from selected teams.
Invite only
to the combine, and if you get a chance to do that, that's a great opportunity for exposure, not just from a physical standpoint. Like, you can actually go talk to the teams and kind of sell yourself a little bit more. And usually, those folks who get invited, they're normally picked up by a team, even if they're not drafted. They're at least invited to a training camp. So that's like a good, probability, I would say, but you never know. You don't have control over it. So
Yeah, I would say from what I've seen from attending the draft the last few years, Rob, is it can make or break, right? I've seen a lot of athletes who got that invitation based on a reputation, a brand, a sports center play, right? That's kind of in lore. And they went in there and eliminated themselves. Poor attitude, not ready, not physically, failed the mental test, like all these things when they're looking at them, you're under the scope, right? So all of a sudden they're looking at everything. And so it can, as much as it can work for somebody, someone who's unprepared, it can work very much against them, and they've eliminated themselves from the draft. So I want to pivot a little bit to winners find a way, right? I love the quote, Stephen. Winners, when shown data that they're losing, find a way to win. Right? I mean, we've surrounded ourselves with guys like this our whole lives. Like, this is who we want. Like, we're solutions oriented because they're like, oh, I don't know, I can't figure it out. Heck with it. Like wait a minute, we got to figure it out. like there's no, I can't figure it out. We have to figure it out, or else we will not win. And there's all sorts of KPIs we can measure, key performance indicators that are indicating we're not losing, or we're not winning. We are losing, right? Walk us through a time where, from your athletic endeavor, where you weren't winning. And what did you do about it to find the winning way?
Yeah, that's a great question. In my journey throughout the process of trying to identify who I was after sports were done, I was just exploring, trying to figure out, what career works for me, still applying to a lot of different places, moving to different areas. And then there was one point, for me and my wife, at the time we were engaged and getting married. And I had got laid off from my job that for the first time, it was a job in the space of doing some graphic design or something. So it was like, okay, I'm getting exposure. But then I got laid off. To me, kind of brought back some of those moments of like, okay, somebody doesn't want me anymore.
I just got released again.
I got released. And I'm in this space where I'm getting ready to go into one of the happiest moments of my life. But now I have to figure out how we're going to make it work.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm still trying to identify like what's next in my life and what my future career is going to look like, what our future life together is going to look like. But the fact that she was there to support me and just once again tapping in the support network, I think is critical in this portion of your life, because I was depressed about it. I was saddened about it, but also very optimistic about what's next. And knowing that she was there to like help us get through the process, and we had a phenomenal wedding. It was great. It also spurred the spark to do what I'm doing now. And it really pushed me to come back to Minnesota, because we were living in Maryland, and I'm looking for employment. But then for me, I was like, well, I could find another job here, or I can go do something that I feel like God is telling me to do, which is helping other athletes, specifically go back to Minnesota and be a bridge. And I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I took a chance, reached out to a couple of people that I knew, and by the grace of God, I got a job on January 1st, 2014, right after my unemployment benefits ended. Yeah. And it got me to come to Minnesota and kind of spearheaded all of the things that I've been able to do at the university, but also like leading to launching my business, Strive Higher After Sports, by coming back to Minnesota, really kind of starting that process during a time where I felt like, okay, this could be another pivotal moment where I can either go down in the dumps or try to figure out what's next in my life. And leaning into my wife and my friends and just kind of the relationships that I had to help open up a door for me in Minnesota really helped me like get to a point to where I'm at now.
Yeah, two big things for me in this. Like, one is the first is that there's a faith walk here, right? Like, Stephen is leaning into, hey, I'm down, not out. And there's a lot of negative self-talk. So being grounded in who you are becomes really important, because he's go, oh, she's gonna marry the unemployed loser. Like, this is my mind working on me, going, oh man, like I don't know what I'm offering. I'm supposed to be the guy who actually values and the provider, right? We're called to do that as men. And so that's number one. It's really easy to get tough on ourselves and talk poorly to ourselves. But in that faith walk, we don't really spend time in that, right? And so it also pointed, some compass to your journey. Two, folks, is that one of the things I think that's really smart is I'm going on a limb and assuming a lot of people in Maryland don't know Davis Jr., the football player, the exceptional athlete, the guy who gave all the effort, blood, sweat, and tears. And by going to the University of Minnesota, it's not who he knows, it's who knows him. And all these people know him, and they're like, oh, Stephen Davis Jr., I'm happy to refer him because he's a hardworking guy. He gives all his effort. He's focused. He will give and create value for your organization like he did for ours. And he has that network there. So he leans back into that, which I think is a huge deal, right? And so now you hit and off and running, and that's pretty awesome. And now here you are today, helping a bunch of people. It's fabulous. Rob, last question for Stephen.
Yeah. So what advice would you give, like you all these guys now, and you went through it yourself. So what advice do you give to the players that don't get drafted? You talk about on our podcast about it. So give some advice now for them to kind of, pick up their spirits, but really get driven in the right direction.
That their experience is not different from any other athlete, and that don't do this by yourself is really like the biggest piece of advice that I try to push, because when you try to do it alone, you go fast, but you go together, you go far. That's a saying. But also when you try to do it alone, like it takes a toll on you, and you start to separate yourself from your friends and your family. And that's not healthy. And I think, by leaning into community, which is something that I really big on, is how do we bring all of us who have stories to tell together to help pull each other up and help us during that tough period, because it's unexpected for a lot of us. And during that unexpected period, like I said, you're grieving, and you need someone who understands you to help pick you up in that space. So for those who don't get drafted, like, there's still going to be that dream, and they're going to keep pushing it forward as much as they can to hold on to that hope that they will, play on a team. But once you lean into community, you can understand too, like, hey, you can keep pushing for this, but we got your back. Like, we're going to, be here when you fall, when you succeed, but also to help you understand, like, how do you build yourself up to be more than just this moment? Because if anything, it's a reality check to look at it like, man, okay, this could end for me. Like, the team may not want me. I can push hard, but I don't know how long this career is going to be, which for sports is not a very long time. Like, nobody's playing till they're 60. So
golfers. So I'm going to answer this question too, Rob, because I've been asked this question so many times, and I've seen a lot of athletes struggle in this mode, in that moment. And one is, man, like, $1 million, right? Phone a friend, like, get away, and someone who you actually know. And our networks of the teams we've been on, it's an absolute brother and sisterhood. Like, you go back into those moments of who you've shed all the sweat and blood with. Like, you get back, you don't need to see him for 12 years. You're like, Steven, what's up? Like, my God. And it's an immediate connection because we were there together in the trenches. I would equate it probably to how the military feels in the foxhole, right? Yeah. Like, you go and put your life on the line. It's not life and death athletics. People oversell that. But I'll also tell you, by leading winning teams. This is why I wrote the book, because so many athletes came to me, and Wiley came to me and said, we got to write this book, because these athletes say, hey, I got I don't have any tools to go out in the real world. And I'm like, that's crazy. Like Stephen Davis Jr. is a hyper learner. He knows how to be a teammate. He knows how to learn faster and adapt than most people can anywhere. He can do all these things that he's learned through sport. That's just amazing. And he's humble enough to know what that means to actually learn and be coachable and adapt to feedback. So all these companies out there, they want athletes because they've got all these skill sets in advance. So I wrote that book about that, to like get in and start taking action. So if someone's going to, an ideal avatar for Stephen Davis Jr., like what's that client? If someone's out there going through this that needs to call you right now, who is that right now for you?
The ideal person, it will be, you know, that person who's just realized that the sport has come to a close or is about to come to a close, and they don't know what the hell to do next.
Yeah.
Right? You know, that's where I feel like I come in the best to help you ground yourself. And from a standpoint of my own experience, living experience in it, to understand, I know exactly what you're going through, to help you rebuild your foundation, to set you on a pathway to be whoever you want to be in this world. You know, getting people at a point where they're down the hardest, I think is where God is really calling me to help.
Yeah. So every college senior out there, like, because 99% of you are not going on, right? Like, so it's literally this transition is going to happen, and it's not an if, it's a when, right? And I think about this because as pro athletes, and we just watch March Madness, we watch all these. Hey, there's one winner in the end, right? And there's very few athletes who get to do the retirement tour, right? Who are like, hey, I'm coming in and Minnesota's going to offer me the Barker Lounger. And then, you know, I went to LA and they offered me the, you know, Gretzky signed it, like whatever. Like the rest of us are going to get fired. It's like you're end or you're going to get released. And this is what happens. And so that's a tough world to live in. And it's not an if, it's a when.
Yeah, it's real.
And so it's real. And so there'll be a transition in there. So listen, if you're going through that, you're finding it. And by the way, you don't need to be a superstar athlete to call Stephen Davis Jr. You could be like, hey, I was a great athlete as a sophomore. I got hurt. Something happened. I really haven't. I'm 28 now and I haven't recovered yet. I still want to be the kid who was all state at 16. And like, I totally get that. But life is going to keep moving and a plan has to be put in place. Please call Stephen Davis Jr. Get involved. There are resources all over the place. I highly encourage you to take that next step. Pick up the phone, get on the website, find out. Where do they find you?
You can find me on my website, strivehigheraftersports.com. You can also find me on Instagram at shed, SHED_AVE, AVE. I'm pretty accessible on LinkedIn as well. You can do a quick discovery call just to kind of see where you're at. But I want to be a resource for you. So
it's awesome. Rob, final word?
Tap into Stephen and make sure you're watching these great podcasts because every week on Winners Find a Way and Athletes, Entrepreneurs, Alumni Journey, we have great guests like Stephen on, and just there's a lot of good advice that he provides in these other podcast guests, and just tap into it. Like you're not alone. And like Trent just said, we want to make a difference and help as many people as we can.
Awesome stuff. For draft day, I am Trent Clark. This is Stephen Davis Jr. right here. My guy, Stephen Davis Jr. So join us again. We are back on live at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific with Jed Collins talking all things. Jebediah, my man, talking all about financial resources and financial literacy and education, and a big proponent that young people are missing, not just young athletes, young people are missing. It's going to be a great time. Jed's got super great insights and he's got fun stories and he's tied into all the big leagues. So it's going to be a great time to be live with us at Draft Day, Green Bay, 2:30 p.m. this afternoon, Eastern. See you then.
See ya.